Good evening, everyone. This is Tim Hitchcock with Hey Hey Hitchcock. Today, joining me is a friend and business associate Mac Mitchell. Mac is the one that kind of got us into the decorated amaryllis bulb business. A lot of people in the county are aware of this because we sell a lot in the county. But Mac, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so short story, and you'll have to cut me off if I start to ramble on. But I'm from Chattanooga.
Might be like one of my short stories that last forever.
I'm from Chattanooga, Tennessee, born and raised, so not too far from here. And went to Baylor in Chattanooga in high school. Went to College of Charleston, South Carolina. Had a short stint as a financial analyst in Colorado, which is what I studied.
Did you lose your balance?
No.
Little financial humor there, very little financial.
No, but I did realize that I was not meant for the corporate world. So I went and with a bit of wanderlust, and I had studied abroad in college a couple of times, ended up in Moscow, Russia, teaching English, which was quite a fascinating experience.
Wow.
But then landed in Chile in South America, where I spent about 12 years and got involved in a bunch of different stuff from making wine.
Let me break in here just a second now. Did you speak Russian?
I learned a little bit while I was there.
Okay.
I learned enough to survive and get around, but
So your students, when you were teaching English, they knew enough that it wasn't just like cold turkey when you got to them, or?
Yeah, because most of my students, especially since I had studied finance, they had business backgrounds. So a lot of them, one of my private students, for example, of English, he had a Harvard law degree. So spoke fluent English.
Oh, wow.
Went to the London School of Economics. And so a lot of them, they wanted to fine tune their English or something like that. Okay. So I didn't need to know Russian.
Okay. All right.
But then it was about time to leave there. It was starting to get, this was about 2008. And it was starting
If you stayed much longer, you might still be there.
Exactly.
Locked up in a prison.
Exactly.
Somewhere.
So it was a good time to get out.
Yes, it was.
And the financial crisis had happened here in the States. So it wasn't a good time to come back here. So continued the traveling and got a job teaching English again, business English in Chile. And did that for a couple of years and then kind of went out on my own and started playing around with different projects. Chile was a great place at the time for upstarts and entrepreneurs and people trying out new things, and like we were talking about in the car, going out on a limb.
Yep. Now, did you already speak Spanish when you went to Chile? Okay.
No, I studied Latin in high school.
Okay.
I thought I was going to be a doctor.
Okay.
Then when
But you didn't have enough patience, right?
it wasn't. It wasn't. Yeah, there you go.
Gee.
Good. No, it was after high school. I applied to two colleges, Vanderbilt and College of Charleston. And Vanderbilt told me to go to College of Charleston. So I said, thank you very much. So that was kind of the end of the doctor career. But yeah, in Chile, I got involved in a bunch of different things, tourism, wine and food tourism, making my own wine. And then I moved out to the countryside, and there were some hacienda houses of old families in Chile that had these old family estates. And they tried to generate money from them because they were just money pits.
Right.
Obviously. And everybody lived in the city. Nobody really went out to the country house, but they wanted to keep it. So we would turn them into these event centers or bed and breakfasts.
Okay.
And so one big project I did, the owner happened to be in the agriculture business as well. So after the project was finished, when I decided to move back to the States, this was around 2018, he showed me this. They wanted to do this here in the U.S., the waxed amaryllis bulbs. And so asked me if I was interested. I knew nothing about them. I had never seen a bulb in my life. And I thought, why not? I mean, it can't be that difficult. So we'll figure it out. So we just kind of started, he introduced me kind of to the business, and we came up with the idea of, I would come back to the States and we would kind of work on this project together. And that was in, 2000. 19, I moved back to the U.S. right before COVID, thankfully.
Okay.
And so I spent COVID here, not Chile.
Yeah.
Which would have been a different experience.
Yeah.
But so yeah, got started with the bulbs here, and then met you guys. I think I met you, Tim, first. I spoke to Chris first.
Okay.
But face to face, I think you and I were the first to meet when you came down to I started in a garage, literally a dilapidated garage behind somebody's house, hand dipping these things myself. Then I moved to the little convenience store down in St. Elmo where you met me.
Right. Let's kind of pause just a minute,
Okay.
Mac, and we'll stop for a commercial break, and we'll be back to the garage in St. Elmo when we come back.
Perfect.
This is Tim Hitchcock with Hey Hey Hitchcock. We'll be back in a few. This is Tim Hitchcock with Hey Hey Hitchcock. We're back with my friend and business associate, Mac Mitchell. We're talking about his history of world travel and getting into the amaryllis business and then getting us into the amaryllis business. So, Mac, before the break, you were talking about how you were started out in Chattanooga dipping the bulbs.
Yes. So this literally was a garage project. And then and I actually I have a funny story that I thought of, was when you came to meet me in St. Elmo to get some, I think just the regular bare bulbs for pots.
Yes.
And you saw us with our little ovens and, smoking up this little, I mean, it's probably a fire hazard. I don't know. But I was just trying to get it done. I
mean, what harm could there be with gallons of hot wax?
Yeah. At 300 degrees Fahrenheit in a enclosed space with a soundproof ceiling, asbestos soundproof ceiling above us. Exactly. No, it was a nightmare waiting to happen. But I remember you asking me a lot of questions. And I was like, I think this guy wants to do this. I better be careful about how much I say to him.
And we've talked before, if you're in the nursery business, you be careful what you say to other people.
Yeah. Or if you're talking to somebody in the nursery business, know that they're trying to get information from you no matter what. So it's how much do you want to give out. But yeah, that was our first meeting. And then
now let me go. The reason I was getting the raw bulbs from Mac is we had been doing business for years with the company that Mac worked for.
Yeah.
That I'm not going to mention their name because somebody else might go in there and try and buy from them. But we've been buying amaryllis bulbs for years and making amaryllis bulb kits.
Okay. Yeah.
We had a nice little decorative box made, and we would put just a raw amaryllis bulb, a coconut core disc, and a little plastic pot in there with planting instructions. And they would reconstitute the coconut core disc as soil and plant the amaryllis bulb in this pot that we sent out. And coconut core, for those of you who don't know, that's the cover, not the shell, but the cover of a coconut, the fibrous cover. It makes very good soil. It's an excellent growing medium. But
that's what basically everybody was doing, the kits.
Yes.
And it all depended on how much money you put into the box. And I mean, y'all have a higher end, more decorative box than a lot of the big box people because you're selling online and direct to consumers. But yeah, so this was so then every year I had to upgrade, and it was like starting a company every year. It was. I look back on it and I think, how was that even possible? Because after that shop in St. Elmo, 1 year later I was in a warehouse in Rossville. And trying to get more and more space. And that's the first place I built a cooler.
Yeah.
So that's when we were starting to get serious.
And I was down at that place 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, and you came down to pick up bulbs. But this time you came down to pick up waxed bulbs and the bulbs for kits. So I could see that the hook had been the hook had been set in your eyes because you had experienced how much fun these are.
If I remember right, I can't remember if it was the first time or the first time. I think I bought 2 or 3 bulbs from you.
Yeah, you did.
And brought back up, and we watched those, and I gave one to my wife, and she was so excited because she'd never seen anything like it. And now that we're doing tens of thousands, if I bring her one home, that's just, you got those all over the place. I want something unique.
Yeah, want something different. Yeah. Well, that's why we're trying to come up with new designs all the time.
Exactly.
But yeah, so then with that warehouse, I don't know how we survived. And with the labor, I was going through one of those.
Tell us about some of your labor situations.
I can't tell. Well, so I had to take a gun in one time because of the location of the place, unloading trucks at night. I was surrounded by a group of people at about 11 o'clock at night in Rossville Boulevard and outside my truck. And until I convinced them that these were just amaryllis bulbs and they weren't going to be able to sell them quickly, only then did they leave me alone. Then I had to take my own gun. But then
pawn shops do not take amaryllis bulbs.
You cannot pawn an amaryllis. You cannot pawn an amaryllis bulb. But no, I had workers. I had gangs coming by yelling at workers, like people that I had hired that I didn't know were part of a gang. And their gang is coming by harassing them while they're working on flower bulbs, or the opposite gang is coming and threatening them. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I just want to make bulbs. What?
Talking about
how do I get away from this?
Talking about the gangs here. Our son is a emergency room physician, and when he was in doing his residency in Lawton, Oklahoma, they have full-time armed security, and if there would be a gang shooting, then all the cops in town would come to the hospital because the guy who was in the ICU or in the emergency room getting a bullet taken out, all of the other gang would come in to try and finish him off. And, Sampson never got a bullet hole in his vehicle, but a lot of doctors, there were a lot of shootouts in the parking lot of the emergency room.
Yeah, luckily we just dealt with jeers and yelling and comments and stuff like that. But yeah, so needless to say, the labor force was very difficult. Mm-hmm. And so that's when we tested that first year up at Daylily. And when we worked with the one crew that still works on the bulbs,
right? And
it was it was a test. It was also, we had a lot of hiccups to get over.
Of course.
That's when I became a professional truck driver. I don't know if you remember, but I was moving those. I had those 26-foot box trucks, which I had never driven before, and then every now and then. I would have about 9,000 pounds of bulbs in a U-Haul. And I can tell you, going up and down Baker Mountain.
Oh, the front end of the truck, it's hard to steer those things when the front tires aren't.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure the brakes were going to make it on that U-Haul. And, of course, I didn't tell U-Haul in Chattanooga that I was loading 9,000 pounds of flower bulbs. I think the weight limit was about 2,500 on it. So,
talking about U-Haul, I got to throw in another story here. My son Russell, who lives in Thousand Oaks, California, when we moved him from Provo, Utah, to Thousand Oaks, California, we had to rent the biggest, whatever it is, 28-footer, the biggest U-Haul that they have.
Yeah.
And do you know what it costs to rent a U-Haul 28-footer from Provo, Utah, to Thousand Oaks, California?
No.
75 cents. 75 cents.
75?
75 cents. What happened was we went to the U-Haul place, and the guy was just so excited. He said, we have had 13 trucks come out of Southern California this week, and nobody is going down.
Nobody wants to go back.
So we were going to have to pay somebody to take a few trucks down. And so it was going to be $1.50, but my daughter-in-law had clipped a 50% off coupon somewhere, and 75 cents for the U-Haul. I'm sorry, I had to get that story in.
Well, no, that's a good one. I need to keep that in mind if I'm ever moving again. Go against the flow of U-Haul and get a deal. But yeah, there was that first year, and then that's when, it was. We spoke about it, and things worked great. But obviously, we needed some different stuff, and you had that building that you were willing to rebuild.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, it had to be rebuilt.
It just had a dirt floor, no insulation, no electricity.
Yeah, holes in the ceiling.
Yes. Now, we actually had that first year. The folks down in Peru actually sent one or two guys up.
Yes.
For 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, to oversee, to help oversee.
Yeah.
But your crew, and what I've learned since working with y'all, the crew, for anybody out there, the crew at Daylily is unbeatable.
Don't tell anybody that.
Don't tell
people that. Don't tell people that.
But they're unbeatable because of the environment of Daylily. It's not that it would be that way anywhere else.
We have a lot of fun. We enjoy each other out there.
Yeah. Yeah. But so it was, so that was great. And then we've just sort of ramped up since then. And I mean, it's insane. So as kind of a summary, from the garage at my mother's friend's house in 2019, where I dipped all the bulbs, I did 7,800 bulbs that year. That first,
all by yourself.
All by myself. That first year. And then this last Christmas, we did 95,000. Mm-hmm. And we're doing 40,000 this spring.
Yep.
So, and we run out still.
Yes.
And every day, I mean, I was just before coming here looking at, from our shows in January, the people that are just now getting in touch saying, I totally forgot, I need spring, oh my God. And they're panicked because they're afraid they're not going to get spring bulbs. Luckily, we have them, so if you're out there and you need spring bulbs, just give us a ring. We got them.
Now, the trade shows that you go to, mm-hmm. they're different than the normal trade shows that I go to as a wholesale nurseryman.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit how those shows differ?
Yeah. Well, that was my back rewind to Chile, and this sort of led to some of the difficulties that I had with my original agreement and the original relationship with the Chilean company. Was there was already a guy in the U.S. doing this, and they had been partnered with him, and it had fallen out. Mm-hmm. And they had separated, but they were selling to big box. And it was, and I remember seeing I'm going to sidetrack here. There was a great interview I saw with Orson Welles when they were talking to him about the filming of the, the fictional place Xanadu, mm-hmm. and the amazing mansion, and how he pulled off all this stuff that nobody had ever done as a director.
Right.
And they said, how did you know you could do that? And he goes, that's the secret. I didn't.
Yeah.
I was ignorant and arrogant. And I was like, oh, that's me.
Well, I'm half there. I've got the ignorant part. I don't know how arrogant I am, but I know I'm very ignorant.
But so, I looked at these things and I was like, sitting in Chile, my first thought was, not Lowe's, but Crate and Barrel.
Yes.
Not Walmart, but Pier 1 Imports, which doesn't exist now, but did back then. So I was like, why are you looking at this like a plant? This is a home decor item. And everybody said I was crazy. No. They said, no, you're crazy. You're crazy. Nobody's going to buy that. Mm-hmm. Nobody's going to buy that when they go to buy a sofa cushion.
Yeah.
And so, but my thing was, why would we go head to head against this guy that's already doing it in the U.S.?
Right.
Why don't we just steer clear of him for a while and figure out our own thing? And so that's when the idea to target the higher end gift and home decor market was was kind of born.
So the shows you go to, they're not a nursery show.
No.
It's a home decor. It's a where they would buy stuff for gift shops.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah, gives, and it crosses. At some point, it crosses because obviously, as you probably know, those garden centers that have survived the onslaught of Home Depot and Walmart, like the Barn Nursery in Chattanooga and Leaf and Petal in Birmingham and places like that, they've survived by providing more than plants. Exactly. They are also a gift destination, a home decor destination. So there's some crossover there in the industry. And so we sort of took advantage of that really, I sound like it was all part of a plan. It wasn't. It was, let's try this.
Yeah.
And I do remember one of my first clients at that first gift show was Monticello.
Okay.
Which I told you earlier, this year we were the #1 selling item in the Monticello gift catalog.
Wow, that's something else.
In 4 years, we went from an introduction to the #1 selling product in the Monticello gift catalog.
Wow.
It's insane.
We're going to talk a little bit more about that when we get back from this commercial break. This is Tim Hitchcock with Hey Hey Hitchcock with Mac Mitchell, and we'll be back with you in just a few minutes. It's Tim Hitchcock back with Hey Hey Hitchcock here with Mac Mitchell, my friend and business associate. We're talking about decorated amaryllis bulbs. Mac, where were we when we broke?
Well, now you're asking me to have a good memory, Tim. Are you kidding me? It's after high season. How am I supposed to remember
That's
anything?
because I can't remember.
My brain is mush. Well, I think we were talking about loads and loads of success, which is what we've had with the bulbs. But yes, that's what we were talking about. So yeah, in being in the kind of a different niche.
Yes.
And so that's worked really well, and I really enjoy it because I think it challenges us to stay very cutting edge, which is what we're trying to do, which is why I brought some of the bulbs that are kind of our newest, latest, and greatest designs. So we're constantly creating new designs. We have to. I mean, it's the only way to stay on the leading edge. Now, we are on the leading edge.
At first, we just did wax bulbs.
Exactly.
That was it, and we were just doing. Did we do any of the splatter bulbs the first year? Or were they just all solid colors?
No, we were doing splatter bulbs.
Okay.
We were doing splatter bulbs. The only thing kind of unusual was, we had created the splatter bulbs, and we had at that time created glitter and moss.
Okay.
And so, but hadn't perfected it was, once we moved the operation up here, we really perfected our glue system and our system of how we can apply some of the things that we do on the outside. And so that allowed us to expand even more into more of what we call botanicals, the natural covering.
You want to take a few minutes and talk about the bulbs that you brought here today?
Yeah, so these are some of our hottest, newest designs this year. So we can do, I guess we'll go in order. So this one is a simpler wax covering, but it has the stamped logo. So the First National Bank of Middle Tennessee is on there. And
thanks a lot, First National Bank. You were our first corporate customer.
Yes, they were.
A year ago Christmas. We've got a, what's it called, a pad printer?
Yeah, pad printer.
That'll actually print on a rounded surface. So with a high-resolution JPEG logo, we can print virtually anything on a bulb in the colors of your choice.
Yeah, and the detail is insane. Like we just recently did the Biltmore mansion.
Yes.
Because the Biltmore is going to start carrying the bulb. And you can see the tiny little windows of the mansion on there. It's insane how precise the printing is.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a fantastic option for a corporate gift. Something that you could do year after year, and people will. It's not your regular old coffee mug. It's not your standard.
You can change up the colors
exactly
each year if you want to. and they're not fattening. It's not like getting
No.
a box of candy for Christmas.
No, but just as enjoyable. Just
Yes.
as enjoyable.
Well, more enjoyable.
Flowers, yeah.
Because you can enjoy this. Now, like this particular bulb right here, I see 3 blooms coming out of it at the same time. We've had people who have emailed and said we've had as many as 5 bloom stems come out and get blooms over 3-4 months or more.
Yeah. Which that's the other thing is when we went into this higher end market, the question was, how can we be a higher end product? Because you have to. You can't just say it. And so that's why all of our bulbs that we use for this program are 3 years of growth, which that extra year, really the extra 2 or 3 years, the second or third year, most big box clients wouldn't even dare because they're not going to pay for that.
Right.
The overhead.
It's a much more
The
expensive
overhead
bulb.
of farming the plant for an additional, most box kits are single year, you know this. And then some of the higher end box kits, it's a 2-year bulb, and then ours are 3-year bulbs for this program. But we've started to expand with adding different things on the bulbs. Here you have live succulents, so they are living.
Let's go back now. Is this one waxed? Is
Yeah,
that
so
fuzzy,
it's-
is that fuzzy wax?
No, no, it is not fuzzy wax. It is moss that's on top of wax. So the wax is first layer, then there's moss, and then we add the succulents, which are live, and the succulents will actually root into the moss and hang on, and then clients can spritz them once or twice a week, depending on the humidity where they are, to keep them alive.
This one with the succulents, it does require a little maintenance to spritz it with a little water.
Yeah, just the
2 or
succulents,
3 times a week.
not
But
the amaryllis.
Everything else here is just a no-brainer. You don't do
Yeah,
anything.
which that's the thing we haven't even talked about yet. I mean, that's the beauty of this is you don't do anything. I mean, I tell people at market and at different places, and I age myself when I say this, but I remember the old Ron Popeil
Oh, yeah. The
turkey roasters, set it and
the
forget
pocket
it.
Fisherman.
Yeah, but so I call this the Ron Popeil bulb. You just
Okay.
set it and forget it, which literally you do. I mean, last week I came through my living room at home and I kind of jumped because there was this beautiful, massive flower staring at me. And I had totally forgotten that I had a bulb over there.
Yeah.
And, I haven't been watering it. I haven't been looking after it. I haven't been doing anything. And it's just doing its thing. So that's really the beauty of these is that people get to enjoy the flowers without having a chore or a task. For those who don't have the time or think that they don't have a green thumb. Most people do, but they think they don't.
I like to tell people they're idiot-proof. If I could grow them, anybody can.
Yes.
And I have had employees at nursing homes who just rave about them because people have given them to residents of the nursing home as gifts. And there's no watering, there's no fertilizing. They just sit it there. They never have to do anything.
Yeah.
And they just enjoy it. The staff's not put out by anything. We actually had a teacher here in Warren County over at the high school. Somebody gave her one, and she let the students name it. They named it Pierre, and they would measure it each day.
Yeah.
And keep a log of the growth, and they would take a photo of it each day, and then they put together a time-lapse movie with all of those photos.
Fantastic.
Which is really, really cool.
And I've heard stories about like that from other school districts. We sold to a school district up in, I believe it was Maryland, and they told me that afterwards the teachers had used the bulbs to bribe the children to behave. Whoever behaved the best got the bulb on their desk that day.
Oh, wow.
Once the bulb stopped growing, the class was out of control. So they needed a new bulb to get the class back under control.
Oh, that's pretty
So
good.
they've become amazing even tools of
bribery.
child management. Yeah, child behavior management, the bulb can actually be. But then like this year, we're starting to do, and this is the thing, is we listen to our clients. With Daylily, we have an amazing system where through your online platforms, we're able to test new designs, see how the market reacts to them. Then we can go to these shows and say, look, we've been selling this online.
Right.
It does well. People want them. And then that's how we can introduce. So it's an amazing environment to create and to create, well, to imagine, design, create, and then execute.
Right.
It's unbelievable. And down to, I go into the shop, a couple of times a week, and I love seeing that all of the workers that work on the bulbs, they're experimenting.
Yeah.
And some of those designs have become top designs of ours.
We had, we were doing a gold, a silver, and a red glitter.
Yeah.
Just separate. And then one of our employees just thought, let's mix all three together. Yeah. And it was this beautiful color.
Yeah.
It turned out to be the biggest selling glitter that we had that year.
Yeah, it's insane. And then Chris, who, I told Chris, who's a trained accountant, he designed the succulent bulb, and he designed the preserved flower. And I go,
tell us about the preserved flowers.
I said, Chris, did you ever think you were going to be a designer? And he goes, no. And I said, well, you are one. You're a product designer. Yeah, the preserved flowers Chris found in Holland when he went to go to a show there, I believe in November. And they are real flowers that have been preserved, so they still have the texture of a rose. They don't have the scent, but they still have the texture of the rose, the look and the feel. And the preserved flower will last well beyond the bulb. It'll last 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
The preserved
That's
flower.
Amazing.
But it's just, and we took these to Dallas this year to the show for right after Christmas, and people just went head over heels.
Yeah.
And so it's been so much fun to see these new, and what I was going to say about the lacquer is we listen to our clients also for product design, and we had a lot of people that were asking for a little more shine. There's a special technique, it's a secret, I'm not going to say, how we get the shine on the wax.
Right.
But we wanted to get an even further shine. So we found a specialist lacquer producer in Italy that we have imported and tested, and we're going to now start doing the lacquer bulbs. So we're keeping the designs coming, keeping it, evolving, changing,
right?
In order to stay up with market trends, and it's fun, and it's fun that everybody gets to participate in the designs.
Oh yeah,
there's not just a single person that's their job.
Right.
It's everybody's job.
Right.
So
we're going to need to take another break here, Mac, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the designs and the different things that we've done with the amaryllis bulb. So this is Tim Hitchcock with Mac Mitchell here at Hey Hey Hitchcock, and we'll be back in just a few. This is Tim Hitchcock back at Hey Hey Hitchcock with my friend and business associate Mac Mitchell, talking about the decorated amaryllis bulbs. We were talking about designs before the break. One thing we hadn't talked about yet, if somebody has an idea, we have, if I remember right, and I may not, but there was a Jewish gentleman up on Long Island that wanted them for Hanukkah. So we used a white bulb and mixed kind of a bluish purple look for the Hanukkah colors. He approved that, and he's bought lots of those over the last 2 years, and it turns out that blue is just right for University of Kentucky fans. We've sold a lot of those to the University of Kentucky fans in the holiday seasons.
Yeah, it's really, it's endless, the designs. And this year we were designing, this year was our first year participating in New York. So we took up a lot of, we knew that New York was going to be an international show. We knew that there would be international people there. And so we took some designs that weren't associated specifically with Christmas or with any other U.S. holiday. Right. So kind of trying to suggest that, this can be so versatile. And we've had that with, it's really endless. The niches that we're finding with this, it's so fascinating, and it just keeps going and going and going.
You mentioned New York. Tell the folks at home about the Christmas trees.
Oh, of course, the famous New York. Yes, so we have, if you go up to New York at Christmas, so Rockefeller Center, everybody knows where Rock Center is. If you come out The other side of Rockefeller Center towards 6th Avenue, which I believe is the Avenue of the Americas, because that's the one that it's on. 6th Avenue, or at the Avenue of the Americas, and I believe it's between 51st and 52nd Street, there's a Chase building with these massive ornament, red, like glittery ornament balls outside of a fountain. In the lobby of that building across from Rockefeller Center, we have and I'm guesstimating, 35, 40-foot tree that is covered in amaryllis bulbs. The bulbs are actually the ornaments on the tree, and they're growing. So the tree has the bulbs growing and flowering.
So it's got the red wax ornament.
Yeah, red wax ornament.
It looks like an ornament.
Looks like an ornament hung on the tree.
And then do they put those up before they bloom, or they wait till they bloom?
Well, it's actually fascinating. The guy has, so the person who does it is I don't even know what the job is. What is that? A public space interior decorator, maybe. But they buy 500 bulbs from us. I think there are only ever 75 or 80 on the tree at once. So they switch them out at the warehouse to make sure they're always perfectly in bloom.
Okay.
So it's quite an operation.
Sounds like it.
So they buy 500 bulbs from us, but only show maybe 80 to 100 at a time, and they're switching them out. And they have somebody come in and, maintain them throughout the day, and so that it looks perfect 24/7.
Yeah, and he's been doing this for the last 3 years.
Yeah, the last 3 years. And I think we were going to pull the trigger last year on a tree in Barbados, but he couldn't get the logistics done, but I'm hoping we're going to be able to do that this year. So hopefully we'll have our second tree down in the Caribbean. But we would like to do many, many more trees in public spaces.
Yes, so if you are in charge of decorating a Christmas tree in a large public space, talk to us.
Yes, please. We'd be fascinated to do it. But yeah, all these little niche things there's no end to it. It's the only limit is your own creativity, which is really fun and really fantastic. We have a client in I wish I had a photo, but we've got a client in Georgia who now buys only white wax bulbs from us, because what she does is a decoupage class. And everybody comes in, and as the price for the class, you get your bulb. So the bulb's included in the price of the class. And then she has all of the glue and the different pieces of paper and stuff like that you can decoupage, and you walk out with your own designed bulb.
Unique creation that there's not another in the world like it.
Exactly. And you take it home, and it's going to flower beautifully, and you get to enjoy the base that you created. And we've done weddings, bridal showers, alumni lunches for Notre Dame University. It's the corporate logo. It's gonna. I think we still have a long, fun road ahead of us.
Oh yeah,
of creation.
I hope so. Now, let me ask you this, as I get asked all the time. What happens when the bulb quits blooming?
Perfect.
What do we do?
So, well, let me back up, because for those who have either had a bulb or not had a bulb,
that includes everybody.
Okay, good.
Everybody who's had one or not had one.
Oh yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. That includes everybody. So everybody out there, sorry, I meant who's had one or who's going to get one from the pharmacy.
Well, that's everybody.
This spring. Okay. We call them no maintenance, and because if you literally left it alone, it would do its own thing no matter what. But to get the best performance out of it, there are a couple of things you can do. So what you want to do basically is, to give you the science behind it, and then that helps your behavior adapt, is you want to tell the bulb it has not successfully reproduced. Because as we know, in any plant business or flower business, the goal of the plant is to reproduce.
Right.
So when this comes up and opens, it's going to have one big beautiful flower, and it's going to have stamen with pollen on it. Step one, if you want your flower to last longer, get some scissors and cut that pollen off before it hits the petal. there's a chemical reaction. When the pollen hits the petal, it tells the flower a bee or an insect has landed and has pollinated it, so it can wilt and die. So if you remove that pollen, you can buy yourself a couple of extra days of flower. Then when the flower wilts, if you leave it alone, it's going to create a seed pod behind it. You don't want it to spend energy on those seeds. You want it to spend energy on more flowers. So you twist that wilted flower off. When you've removed all the wilted flowers from the stalk, you can cut that stalk at the base, and it'll send up a new stalk. So we're constantly telling it, you hadn't done your job, you hadn't done your job.
You haven't reproduced. And
it's a little abusive, but it gives you better flowers. And then once the full cycle's done, so you've had, in the case of our bulbs, 5 blooming stalks. We had some bulbs this year that had 7, which is insane, the solid whites.
Yeah.
Then what you want to do is, with a box cutter, scissors, you don't have to be too gentle. The bulb's quite sturdy. You just cut the wax off here. And when you get under there, you're going to have a lot of like dead skin layers, like an onion. It has layers on it. And so you want to remove all of that dead material because you don't want that to mold or kind of get gross and nasty. So you get the wax off, you get any dead skin off, and then with the bulbs, because ours were farmed for 3 years and because they're so substantial, they can be replanted. Now, of course, it depends on your zone, but we figured out that, I have probably 1,000 bulbs between private gardens and public gardens. I have about 1,000 bulbs planted on Lookout Mountain in Chattanooga.
Oh, wow.
And they have survived the frosts. And so what you want to do is, once you remove it, you plant them, what they say, up to the shoulders. So that's where it just rounds out. So, because the amaryllis wants to breathe. It doesn't like to be buried. So you plant that in your garden, and then it will come back every spring. It's going to reset to the northern hemisphere. So it'll naturally bloom every spring, and it'll even reproduce underground. And you just, again, set it and forget it, because the humidity, the summer thunderstorm, that's more than enough water.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about watering this once it's in the ground.
Yeah.
It's gonna get what it needs.
Now I always recommend people plant them deeper than that.
Okay.
Because of the freeze. If the ground ever freezes, it'll knock them out. And, you're a little bit farther south, but I always recommend, putting them several inches under. Now, some people have even emailed us and told us that they have taken the base off, the metal base, and that leaves 2 little holes there, and that they have planted it. We don't recommend this, but they have planted it still in the wax.
Oh, really?
And it has stuck roots through those holes, busted the wax, and grown.
Yeah. Even without those, that's the amazing thing about these is the power, because you can see.
Oh, yeah.
It'll bloom through the wax.
Yes,
it'll bust through, and it'll root. Even without these holes, if you left this alone, the roots would burst through.
Right.
It's going to do what it needs to do to get those nutrients.
Yeah.
But they're really, people are timid about them, but you really don't need to be. They're very durable. They're very
the flower looks so delicate. People think that the bulbs are delicate.
Yes, exactly.
But we've dropped them on the floor. We've done everything.
Yeah, I've driven over them.
Yeah.
And they, not a forklift. I drove a forklift over one. It was flat.
Yeah.
But I've driven other things, lighter things over them, and they've survived. But yeah, and then what's fun is then it'll multiply, because they put off little babies, and so they'll multiply, and you can, reach down every couple of years in your garden, kind of check around the bulb, and if you feel it's growing a little baby, they won't space. So you can reach down and take that little baby off and kind of move it out a couple of inches. And I hear from lots of customers that are building amaryllis gardens at their houses year after year because they buy our bulbs year after year.
Amaryllis are kind of like daylilies, hostas, peonies, or peonies or pineys, depending on where you're from. a lot of people can trace theirs back, 3, 4, 5 generations.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Because, my great-great-granny gave it to my great-granny,
Yes.
and she gave it to my granny, and she gave it to my mom, and my mom, gave a baby of it, to me.
Yeah.
But now, we really recommend on these that the babies that you just throw them away. You don't replant them, because that way they can buy from us again. We're going to have to close, Mac. It's been so much fun having you here today.
Thank you very much.
It's been very informative, and I've learned stuff that I didn't even know. So this is Tim Hitchcock with Hey Hey Hitchcock signing off, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you very much.
Good.
Yep.